we are going to go over the offensive um, depth chart. These are my predictions for the offensive depth chart. And, I know, I don't know how accurate this is going to be. This is really from what I saw during the spring and everything like that. I don't know how accurate it's going to be when fall comes around because things can happen in the fall, right? I mean, a lot of things can change during the fall, but it's just my hunch based off of what I saw in the spring, and then also, with the transfer guys coming in. Oh shit! What time? That's why I meant my coffee. With the transfer guys coming in based off of what they've done in the past, yeah, that's what I'm gonna go off on. And look, these may not be 100% accurate, but this will give you an idea where things stand with LSU. First and foremost, the obvious one, and which is quarterback. Uh, Garrett Nussmeier is going to be the starter. That's now, without a question. That's actually the most captain obvious answer you can give. Of course, the backup will be Michael Van Buren, and the reserves will be Colin Hurley, uh, who's coming back after he had an accident, uh, a car accident, but he's back. He's healthy. He actually was participating in all the elite camps, being a kind of a volunteer coach and whatnot. And he's throwing the ball, so he's in full health now. So it'd be great to see him in the fall camp to see what he can do, especially with no expectations for him, and maybe he can battle out for the backup job, and who knows. And then also you have Emil Picarella. Of course, he was brought on because of Colin Hurley's car accident. So they added another quarterback because the quarterback depth chart was pretty thin. And then also Juwan Johnson, who I didn't name in this depth chart right here. He can also play quarterback as well. And I expect him to play some. Oh boy, I expect him to play some Wildcat quarterback. That's what we saw in the spring game. So make sure to watch out for that. Hot coffee, much needed. But anyway, uh, this is the obvious one, right? I mean, this is Gary Nussmeier, scoring quarterback. He's coming off a huge year last year, threw for 4,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Yes, 12 interceptions. He may need to cut that number down, but if you look at Gary Nussmeier's stats as a first-year starting quarterback and compared to Jane Daniels and Joe Burrow, not even close. So Garrett Nussmeier can only go up from here. I think he's gonna have a big year this year. He is projected to be a first-round quarterback. Don't know where in the first round, but he's projected to be a first-round quarterback, and then also potentially a Heisman contender. So, what did I do there? Oh, where'd everybody go? Oh, what happened? Oh, no, no, no. Sorry about that. Yeah, but anyway, you get the point. Like uh, it's painfully obvious that Garrett Nussmeier will be your starting quarterback of the Flying Tigers of LSU. And and also really, and we've discussed this in the previous episode too. I think it was on Go Time where I discussed, you know, does LSU have the number one quarterback room in the country? And there was a great solid point to be made because obviously you had Gary Nussmeier, and who's been a very good quarterback for LSU, but then also Michael Van Buren also got a lot of playing time last year as a true freshman for Mississippi State. And look, if you look at his numbers, they aren't necessarily the greatest, but you have to understand it was thrown into the Lions then in the middle of the season because Cesare got hurt, and he actually did a good job, right? Playing on a really bad Mississippi State team, he did all he could do, and a lot of people think that uh, Michael Van Buren could be the successor to Gary Nussmeier, right? Because next year you don't really have a set quarterback, right? Obviously Bryce Underwood decommitted from LSU, really set the quarterbacks back because by that point all the 2026 quarterbacks already been committed to school, so now LSU's scrambling around looking for a quarterback for the class of 2026, and Also doesn't help that Bo Bentley also, you know, committed to Oklahoma over LSU. So it just hurts even more. So could Michael Van Buren be that guy for LSU? That's a huge possibility. But we'll see how it plays out from here because you don't know who LSU will add in the transfer portal as well, right? LSU has become a much more attractive place for quarterbacks than in years past, right? Of course, Joe Burrow was the first one to kind of break the mold of LSU being a graveyard quarterback, and then Jane Daniels, of course, shut the door. Um, and then if now you have Gary Nussmeier having lost success. I mean, it took years for LSU to break that graveyard, to break the stereotype of being a quarterback graveyard. We saw what happened with Jordan Jefferson. We saw what happened with Anthony Jennings, Brandon Harris, Jarrett Lee. I mean, really the only quarterback that really did well in that era was Zach Menneberger. And you could say Danny Etling too, but Danny Etling wasn't great either. You know what I'm saying? So, it took a little while for LSU to kind of break that stereotype of being a quarterback graveyard. But it would be very interesting to see how the quarterback room moves from here. This is the most obvious uh, depth chart projection we have here because obviously Gary Nussmeier is that guy. So there's that. But the next position group that I want to predict is, of course, you have to go with the running backs. And this one is it's easy, but also at the same time, you don't know how things are going to square up, right? Your starting running back's going to be Caden Durham. Caden Durham had a great season last year for LSU. He ran it for over 700 yards. I mean, it was just a dynamic running back, not only in the run game, but the pass game as well, being a highly effective receiver out of the backfield. That play against South Alabama, the first play of the game, where he caught a swing route and ran 80 yards for a touchdown. I mean, that's the type of special playmaker Caden Durham could be. And really, he probably could have done even more if he had not been so banged up throughout the year. So hopefully he can stay healthy because LSU needs him to be healthy. We've seen LSU, when he's not in the game, they don't really have a huge impact. And it's not like you have a veteran running back like Josh Williams anymore. So, who's going to be the next guy to step up? And in that rotation, in my opinion, I think the number 2 running back will be Harlan Berry. I know Caleb Jackson's going to be back, and he's going to definitely be a part of the rotation. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, Caleb Jackson did not improve because he had a decent freshman year being a second or third string running back. And then we all expected him to take that next jump. He got a little bit bigger, but nothing ever happened. He just never improved. And then Caden Durham, took his spot. Caden Durham really was technically the number 2 back at, after the South Carolina game, and then eventually became the number 1 running back for LSU. But Caden Durham, 771 yards, 6 touchdowns, and and averaged 5.4 yards per carry. Caleb Jackson, like I said, 44 carries for 155 yards. He ran for 3.4 yards per carry, and then he just didn't have a great year. And then just the way Harlan Berry performed throughout the spring lets me believe that he will be the number 2 running back. Also, getting out of the stars in rotation, JT Lindsey is going to be coming in. So JT Lindsey, if he has a decent fall camp and then maybe get some reps throughout the season, he could overtake Caleb Jackson as well. Remember, people forget JT Lindsey was a top 10 running back in high school as well. JT Lindsey him and Harlan Berry were in the same class. JT Lindsey was the Class 5A Player of the Year here in the state of Louisiana. It was a large part into why Alexandria was able to make it to the state championship. He was by far the best offensive player in the state of Louisiana in Class 5A. So he could play a role in there as well. Right now I have him as a reserve because he didn't participate during the spring. He was still enrolled in high school. So it'd be very interesting to see what he could do when he gets here at fall camp. Of course, I mentioned Malachi Lane, more of a walk-on running back, but he's a reserve. And then Trey Holly. We're still waiting on Trey Holly. His court date is set in July, so we'll see if he will be available during the fall camp. So that'll be very interesting development. something to pay attention to throughout the spring. And actually, I think it was July 9th was his court date. So it could happen very, very, very soon. That decision will be made in the next few weeks. So we'll see about that. But LSU is much better in the running back room than was a year ago, where there's so much uncertainty. Your best running back at that time going into fall camp was Josh Williams. So, and the fact that we're talking about Caden Durham coming back and being the starter after a strong freshman campaign, Harlan Berry coming to campus and really being an impact player on offense during the spring camp. Could he take even a bigger step throughout fall camp? And then also Caleb Jackson. I know he struggled last year, but it'd be very interesting to see how Caleb Jackson performs throughout the fall, and maybe he could play a bigger part in the run game, because he is the biggest running back in the room, right? Caleb Jackson right now is 6 foot. I know he's listed at 6 foot, 235 pounds, but I think he was trying to lose weight, so he could be about 220, 225 by the time we get into fall camp. Harlan Berry is 5'10", 185. Caden Durham is 5'9", 205. I know 205 is pretty big for a 5'9" guy, but once again, Caden Durham is not a big back. He's 5'9". He's not, when he is 205, but once again, 5'8", 5'9". It's not what you would consider big. He's more of a scat back than Caleb Jackson. Caleb Jackson's more north-south. Caden Durham is, I'm not saying he isn't north-south, but he is definitely a east-west runner and will do whatever he can to get past you, whether it's running through you, juking you out, spinning. We saw last year how great he was at breaking tackles. But LSU needs a north-south runner. They need a power runner. That has to be Caleb Jackson. But right now, Caleb Jackson, based off what happened last year, it ain't looking too great for the Baton Rouge native. So it'll be very interesting to see what this running back room will look like, not only at the end of fall camp, but as you continue through this season. Because Caden Durham was the number 3 running back at the beginning of the year. He became the starter by game 5. So it'll be very interesting to see what this running back room looks like, as the year progresses, as we get into fall camp, as we get in games 1, 2, and 3, and SEC play, you name it. But anyway, next position group to predict. The next one is, of course, the most highly decorated position group in LSU history, and it's not even close, and that is the wide receiver room here at LSU. Let me pull this up. Hold on. And right now, the wide receiver room, of course, I think the biggest one is Aaron Anderson. Aaron Anderson led LSU in receiving yards last season with 884, and really broke onto the scene this first year here on campus. Didn't really perform that great. A lot of it was because of injuries, and he didn't have an impact in the return game, like I think everyone wanted him to. And a lot of that was due to injuries, and also I think LSU trying to figure out how to use him. And then also the fact that Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, blew up the way they did. They were the 2 best receivers in the country. So, a lot of receivers, a lot of players in that receiver room really struggled with their stat line. Even Mason Taylor, as great as he is, he didn't really get as much targets as he wanted to, because Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors were that good. No one could stop them. So, Aaron Anderson was one of those casualties for that. But last year he had a great year. Really became the number 1 target for Gary Nussmeier. 61 catches and 884 yards. Both were team highs, and he also had 5 touchdown catches. So it's great to see him back as a starter. He's going to play a much bigger role in this offense. But again, you're still going to have some deadly weapons. Chris Hilton is another player that will be starting. I think will be in the starting lineup. We all know about the Chris Hilton saga. We all know that his biggest issue hasn't been the fact that he hasn't played well. That's not the issue at all. The issue with Chris Hilton is that he hasn't been healthy. And we all know how good he can be when he's healthy. We have literally seen it with our own eyes. We've seen him be that deep threat that LSU has always wanted him to be when he's healthy. But the problem is he really has not been healthy whatsoever. And when he's on the field, he's a threat. He's a force to be reckoned with because he can extend the field. And really, that was a big issue with LSU last year, so they weren't able to extend the field because Chris Hilton was injured, and especially last year, not only had Chris Hilton injured, but Kyle Parker, your other deep threat receiver, was also dealing with injuries last year as well. But when Chris Hilton was healthy, this is what he did the last 2 games of the year: Oklahoma and Baylor. Against Oklahoma, he had two catches for 85 yards. Both of those were touchdown receptions of 43 and 42 yards. And you look at the bowl game: 4 catches for 113 yards and a touchdown against Baylor in the 44-31 victory. Like, that's him when he's healthy. And also another great example: 2023. In 2023 against Grambling, 2 catches for 53 yards. He had a catch for 42 yards at Ole Miss. In the bowl game, he had 3 catches for 56 yards. Those are games where he was a relatively healthy quarterback. And yes, he may only get 2 or 3 catches per game. That could very well happen. But if you look at those yards per catch, I mean, they're between 15 and 20 yards. He is a deep threat receiver. He's not your number 1 receiver or even a number 2 receiver, but he's a guy that can extend the game. He can extend the field because he is a very fast receiver. He's a true slot receiver. That's what he's supposed to be for this offense, and now somebody you miss. And if he can stay healthy, he'll play a huge factor in this offense, and LSU needs him to. Look, we talk about Aaron Anderson, and we're going to talk about Nick Anderson in a second. But Chris Hilton is by far the most impactful receiver for this room. He may not be your number 1 receiver, but he's someone that can impact the playbook in such a massive way because of his skill set. Nick Anderson is the next receiver I want to talk about. Nick Anderson is the transfer from Oklahoma, and he is very important too. Different from Chris Hilton and Aaron Anderson. Of course, Aaron Anderson is was by far your most consistent receiver last year. Chris Hilton, we all know what he can do when he's healthy. But Nick Anderson's a difference maker in the aspect of the fact that he is 6'4", 220 pounds. There really aren't many receivers that of his experience level, right? Because of the amount of games he has played throughout his career. Nick Anderson is the only one that has that size and that playmaking ability, right? The only receiver that's as big as him is Colin Billio, but Colin Billio really hasn't played much for LSU. Nick Anderson has played, his freshman season at Oklahoma, broke all kinds of records. He had 798 yards he had 38 catches for 798 yards of receiving and 10 touchdowns. He was a great player for Oklahoma, and everyone thought last year for Oklahoma that he was going to be the guy. Everyone thought he was going to take the next step into becoming an All-American receiver, the next All-American receiver of Oklahoma. But he had a season-ending injury, and he never saw the. I believe he had I think it was an Achilles. I know it was like a leg injury that he had that caused him to miss the season. But it really hurt Oklahoma last year when he got was injured, right? So he tore his quad. Okay, I knew it was a leg injury. So he tore his quad last year for Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's offense really struggled because of that. I mean, remember last year the leading receiver was Bauer Sharp, who we're going to talk about here in a second. And so, him not being available for Oklahoma really hurt their passing attack, and it really hurt the play calling ability for of course their offensive coordinator Seth LeChuck got fired for a multitude of reasons, but a lot of it was because of injuries, including one to Nick Anderson. Nick Anderson is a very special player. I think he'll be the star for LSU. Of course, you could throw up Baron Brown and Xavier Thomas, right? Both those guys got first team reps with LSU, but I do think it will be Nick Anderson because of his playmaking ability. He's 6'4", 220, and there's not how many guys on this roster in LSU's receiver room that are not only as big as him, but big and a really productive receiver. There aren't that many. In my opinion, I think Nick Anderson would be that guy for LSU. And I know you can bring up Xavier Thomas and Bauer Sharp, of course, the two tight ends in terms of size, but you need speed as well. And Nick Anderson has elite speed. So that's why I think he'll be a part of the starting rotation. Um, moving on. The rotation receivers, Barry Brown, elite receiver. He'll be a guy that he'll be a huge part of the return game as well. One of the fastest players in college football right now, transfer from Kentucky. He will definitely be a part of the rotation. Watch out for him. He made a lot of great plays throughout the spring. I expect him to not only make a huge impact in the return game, but also be a productive receiver in the passing game, whether that is as a starter or as a part of the rotation. None of these are set in stone yet. These are my predictions. So obviously, nothing's set in stone. A lot of things have changed throughout the fall camp, but this just shows you how deep this receiver room is. That where Barry Brown is considered to be a rotational player, but he could easily be a part of the starting rotation. Let's say if they go to a 4 receiver set, Barry Brown is going to be that fourth guy. Xavier Thomas, another return guy. Kind of him and Barry Brown are very similar, which is why I mean it's gonna be hard to say he's a starter because some of these guys have the same skill set. But then also Kyle Parker is another guy to watch out for. Like I said earlier, that Kyle Parker was another guy that really hurt LSU. Really hurt LSU with his injury because he tore his ACL. He was another deep threat receiver that LSU could use. He got a lot of praise from Brian Kelly and Gary Nussmeier for how he performed throughout the spring and fall camp. And it looked like he was going to take a huge step this year as a rotational player, but he never got the chance to because he tore his ACL. It'll be very interesting to see how he bounces back from that ACL injury, his torn ACL. Because it could either he could either be the same old Kyle Parker where he was performing at a high rate, or he could be the Kyle Parker where he's still struggling to come off the torn ACL. Not everyone comes back from ACL tear and is productive, right? There's a lot of setbacks that come from tearing your ACL, but he has a chance to become a very significant player as a rotational player. I don't think he's gonna break the starting lineup, but he will definitely be in rotation. He will get some reps because I think he will be a part of the starting rotation for 2026. Of course, your reserves are going to be Teron Francis, the true freshman receiver from Emden Carr, Callan Billia, and Destin Hill, who also is from Emden Carr as well. But he had some issues coming out of high school, going to Florida State, and it looked like he was going to be a starting receiver for Florida State last year, but he got hurt, so he transferred to LSU. Taking a chance on himself, transferred to LSU, and he actually made some plays throughout the spring. I don't know if he's going to break into the rotation or become a start, let alone be a starter. Just because this receiver room is really deep, but who knows? He could ball on during the fall camp, and he could be a starter. But anyway, moving on. The next position group we're going to talk about is the tight end room. Trey Green, your starter, had a strong freshman campaign for LSU. And really emerged as the number 2 tight end behind Mason Taylor, and really was used as a goal line threat. But his role expanded as the season went on. I mean, 6'7", 240 pounds. I mean, he is a heavy mismatch for a lot of teams, if not every team, because of his size, his speed for a guy his size, and then also his unique athletic ability. Remember, he also played significantly for LSU's basketball team. He also not only was a highly recruited football player, he was the number 1 tight end in the country, but he was also a heavily recruited basketball player as well. And he has a chance to have a breakout year for LSU. Last year for LSU, he had 13 catches for 101 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, 30% of his catches were touchdowns. I mean he was used as more as a red zone threat. But in that bowl game, he played a lot more because, of course, Mason Taylor opted out of that bowl game to prepare for the draft. And in that game against Baylor, 6 catches for 53 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was one of the breakout players in that game. So I expect him to take a bigger role as we get later and later into the season, right? I mean, well, he's going to be the number one guy, so he's going to take a lot of reps. He's going to be a huge impact player for LSU. And then also, you have to mention Bauer Sharp. Bauer Sharp, I mentioned him as a starter and a rotational player because he is a starter when LSU goes into 12 personnel, right? Him and Trey Green are on opposite sides of the field. But Bauer Sharp will also rotate in with Trey Green when needed to. Bauer Sharp was Oklahoma's leading receiver last year, actually, which just shows you how bad Oklahoma's offense was last year. That the fact that he was the number one option in the passing game because it's also because of injuries, but also just poor play calling on the offside of the ball, offensive ineptitude, you name it. But he was Oklahoma's leading receiver, 42 catches, which is a team high, 324 yards, which also a team high, and 2 touchdowns, which is tied for second on the team. 3 catches was the team high for Oklahoma last year. That's how bad their offense was, but Bauer Sharp was highly productive in the offense. He's an experienced tight end. He was a starter at Southeastern before taking his chances and he transferred to Oklahoma. Of course, he became the leading receiver there, and then now he transferred back to Louisiana, but this time for LSU, where he will play a huge part not only in the passing game but the run game too. He's a better run blocker than Trey Green. Because Trey Green, remember, Trey Green, this is only his 4th year playing football. He didn't start playing high school football. He didn't start playing organized football till his junior year. And when he did play on the field, he was more of a receiver than tight end. He always stood up and lined up out wide or in the slot. He never played close to the line with his hand on the dirt. So he's still a very raw player. He still has to be taught how to block. So that's why Bauer Sharp probably might be the most impactful transfer on this team. He might be. I'm not saying that Nick Anderson and Barry Brown can't be that. I think those guys would be very special for LSU. But because how LSU struggled with the run game last year, you need tight ends that can block. And Trey Green can't. I think he will become a much better blocker as time moves on. Remember Alex Atkins, who is the new tight end coach for LSU. Remember, he was the offensive line coach for Florida State the last few seasons. So having a guy like Alex Atkins teach Trey Green the fundamentals of run blocking will pay dividends in his development. But bringing a guy like Bauer Sharp to not only help out with being a pass catcher for the passing attack, but also being a run blocker whenever LSU wants to run the ball. And I think that having him will be huge for LSU. And then the last, also Donovan Green. Of course, I spelled his name wrong. I just realized that, but it's Donovan Green. Donovan Green will be he'll be more of a rotational. He'll be more of a reserve. But but when LSU goes to 3 tight end sets, he's going to be in there. And of course, you got the 2 freshmen, J.D. LaFleur, who is the son of David LaFleur, who was a former tight end for LSU, all SEC player who eventually ended up playing for the Cowboys. So you got LSU legacy there, playing for LSU. Oh, by the way, his dad, J.D. LaFleur's dad, talking about David LaFleur, first-team All-American in '96 and a 2-time first-team All-SEC player at tight end for LSU. So there's that. But anyway, next position group and the last position group before we move on to our next subject, and that is the offensive line room. And this is the biggest question mark for LSU, is their offensive line room, right? The only returning starter that's coming back this year is DJ Chester. He was just starting center last year. But I expect DJ Chester to move over to right guard because you brought in Braylon Moore. Now, I'm not saying DJ Chester can't be the starting center, right? Because it could easily be vice versa. I could easily see DJ Chester starting at center and then Braylon Moore moving to guard. I think it would be hard for LSU to take out DJ Chester unless he performs very badly, because he is the only guy who started in every single game last year for LSU. You lost Will Campbell. You lost Emory Jones. You lost Gary Dellinger, and you lost Miles Turner. So you need, so you're going to need to have experienced linemen, and I think DJ Chester can still perform good. I know he has some criticism last year, but I still think he has potential there, and he has a chance to grow. I think maybe moving to guard will be. I think he'd be a lot more comfortable playing guard, and I'm not look and DJ Chester is one of the most versatile offensive linemen that LSU has. So I could easily see him playing guard and having Braylon Moore start at center. Braylon Moore, of course, started 30 plus games at Virginia Tech at center, and I think it's huge that LSU was able to bring him in because you need all the experience you could get, especially with all the question marks the offensive line has at the moment. Um, the other guard would be Paul Mabenga. Paul Mabenga struggled mightily throughout his time at LSU because remember he came in for Garrett Dellinger because Garrett Dellinger was dealing with all kinds of injury issues throughout the year, but it just didn't look right. I mean, especially against Florida. Florida, he did not play a good game whatsoever, and he got heavily criticized for it. But you can also see as the season went on that he improved. Paul Mubenga, he got his first start against Alabama. That didn't really go as well as planned. If you look at his offensive grades, right? Alabama, he had a pass block grade of 26, and a run block grade, and he had a run block grade of 43.9. Against Florida, 33.3 pass block grade and a 45.2 run block grade. But as season one, he got a little bit better. Vanderbilt, 61.7 pass block grade and 51.1 run block grade. Against Oklahoma, 54.1 pass block grade and 61.1 run block grade. Baylor, he struggled with a 43.4 pass block grade, but his run block grade was at 56.2. So he's got better and better at run blocking, and pass block he did get better. Just it didn't really go well against Baylor. So and he was a starter for most of the first team camp. So it'll be very interesting. But some other guys you need to watch out for are, of course, Cohen Eccles and Karis Kearney. Those guys are very solid guards as well. So I think the biggest position battles will be on the inside because I think Tyree Adams is going to be the starting left tackle. That's somebody that the coaching staff trust. He often was the one that came in for a play or two whenever Will Campbell's helmet came off or Emory Jones' helmet came off or one of them got hurt. He was often the guy that LSU plugged in there to go play. So there is some trust from Brad Davis and of course Brian Kelly to be the left tackle. I think that's going to be given. And of course Josh Thompson, who started over 30 games at Northwestern, which is a Big Ten school. So we've seen some elite competition at Northwestern. He will be the starting right tackle. I think that's going to be a given. I think it's hard to not play a guy on the offensive line with that much experience. The only way I don't see him starting is because somebody else who is one of the reserves, whether that's Ori Williams or Weston Davis, outperforms Josh Thompson, right? And even Josh Thompson could also play guard as well. So there's a lot of question marks about this LSU offensive line. So, I mean, lots and lots and lots of questions